My technology is about non-invasive early cancer diagnostics. And Kunal Mitra, I'm a professor in mechanical and aerospace engineering department, and I'm also the director of the biomedical engineering program. And my other technology or commercialization partners are Dr. Michael Grace, he's a biologist. I'll talk more about them in the later slides. Dr. Caroline Frosnoshi from the School of Business. Robert Merrill, he's from the Technology Transfer Office, he's right here today with us. And Tom Foster, a radiologist with the hospital. So what is the motivation of our this technology? We all know that biopsy is one of the gold standards for cancer detection. But what are the problems of biopsy? It's an invasive procedure, and you have to do some incision in your region where you want to detect it, and it can leave some scar. Like I had a biopsy done a couple of years back, and I still have a scar in my face. So you may not want to go through that process. And what is the other problem is the time. The biopsy takes time, which will lead to patient anxiety. So even if it is a gold standard, I still think there is a need to look for alternative technologies which can be much quicker, reducing, because the main thing is anxiety at that time when you have something suspicious. So what is all about technology? Our technology is based on short pulse laser-based optical tomography system. First, I want to emphasize this is different from the OCT, which a lot of you may be familiar. It's called optical coherence tomography. That's a technique which is there in the market. And it's based on, one of the fundamental differences is that that technology, OCT, is based on continuous wave lasers, whereas ours is based on our short pulse lasers. And what are the advantage of short pulse lasers? It gives you high spatial and temporal resolution. And the other point, even if OCT is in the market, in terms of commercialization, they're still not being done for any cancer. It has been only done for some ophthalmic applications. So even if OCT has been done for a while, we are still at a stage where we can compete because, and why? What is the uniqueness? Our technique is based on we can claim is the world's first fully software controlled desktop size ultra short pulse laser system, and we're going to working with a company on this technology for the laser aspect of it, and I'm working myself with our team on the development for the detection scheme. I'll talk more about it, about it a little bit later. And why and what it does, it displays soft tissue contrast based on functional parameters like blood volume, oxygenation, and as well as structural changes. And it's a little different than some of the anatomical information which you get from MRI and CT. And I'll put later on also a slide showing the different techniques and how they compare with each other. So, and where we stand, where we have done enough preliminary proof of concept. We have done this in blinded animal studies in rats and mice with and without tumor, and you have got very successful results. And we have published extensively our work because we think that's start of a credibility. In one of the top journals, we have published our work, which gives us credibility that people believe in this technique. And in terms of technology, we filed a provisional patent in April of 2006, and we are waiting for the full patent was filed in 2007. We are hoping by the end of this year or early next year, we'll have the full patent. So what is the current real problem? Early cancer, that's one of the key. Breast cancer and skin cancer. I mean, everybody's conscious about the breast cancer because we know that attacks 1 in 8 women. But skin is one which is really becoming very, very high incidence, and people aren't understanding the value of it, so there is still need. And for skin cancer, for breast cancer, you do have competing technologies like mammography, ultrasound. But for skin, biopsy is sort of the main and only technique which is being used. And some literature shows that the skin cancer, like if you detect it early, there is a survival rate is about 94%, which is stage 1A. And if you detect it late, the survival rate sort of drops to 5%, which is stage 4. So early detection is sort of a key. And breast cancer, the 5-year survival rate increases by 90% if detected early. So there is a real motivation to do early. And why some of the current techniques which is there are time-consuming and expensive. We all know like MRI and PET. I'm going to again show some of the cost analysis. And uncomfortable, like mammography is one of the gold standard for the first line of test for breast cancer, and you go through breast compression. And another interesting data I was sort of looking yesterday is that they have done a recent study where they've shown that mammography in conjunction with another technology like MRI or CT increases the detection rate to about 5% per every 1,000 women. So what they're trying to do right now, they're going to encourage just not do mammography, do another auxiliary test. So that's one of the motivation. that there is a need for more technologies, because they're saying, that has been very successful in doing that. So we think we have a very competitive technology where we can, highlight some of the challenges. And biopsy, we all know is that you have to sometimes do multiple biopsies to find a single case of melanoma, because it's sort of a biopsy is still a hit and miss type of method. It's a little bit random. And so, you have to go to this, multiple procedures sometimes. And when I meant by lack of accurate instruments, is one of the real challenge in the cancer and tumor detection is the margins. Because a lot of times they will, especially in the biopsy, when they take a biopsy, they may not, not notice the margin, and sort of that's from where it spreads. So detection of the margins of the tumor and cancer is one of the real challenges. And so we think that there is a need to develop schemes where we can look more on the margins. And what is also the motivation is that right now, the melanoma, the success rate or accuracy is only about 65%. So there is, it's not a stage, even if so many techniques, that people are able to catch all this early. So there is only 65% success rate. So there's a problem and a need for new techniques. So what we are proposing is a non-invasive, real-time, these are some of the keywords, cancer diagnostic system. It will be less expensive. I'm going to show some numbers. It will eliminate costly biopsies, unnecessary biopsies. It will be comfortable. You don't have to go through some of the stress, of, like an MRI where you're inside a chamber. So it will be more comfortable. And one of the things, it will be a transportable system. It will be a portable. Right now, it's a little bit in a lab stage, but that will be your Envision system. You'll have a tabletop where you can take it room to room. And it will be a fast image turnaround for patients. So one of the highlights of a laser system is that it is a software-based interface. That's why you claim it the world's first. You don't need a lot of laser experience to run this system. And you can sort of, you need very little laser. Ultra-short lasers have been around, but one of the key problems has been to make it compact, because they're, in fact, when I started using lasers, ultra-short about 10 years back, it will need this much of at least an optical table to set up your optics. We are going to make it a compact, and also it will be less expensive now too. So we want to, and this system, what you're developing is through the internet-based system also. It can be connected. So one of our goal is to that we get very high-resolution images, and it can be sent electronically to the radiologist while the patient can be in the waiting area if they really want to be very anxious. And we'll have set up a system where we'll work with radiologists. They can send us the feedback, within an hour or something. And so the patient can, because one of the real problems which I even face, that your doctor, before you leave, okay, we'll get back to you with the result and do a follow-up test. For my experience, half of the time you don't get a call. You have to call, oh, did you get my result? And so we want to do it like a real time, so that when do you need a follow-up test or not? So that can be all done while you're right there. And it is a high sensitivity and specificity system based on the data what you have done with our animal studies. And we are very confident about our results. And it doesn't need any ionization like in a CT. That's one of the common techniques where you go through for testing. There is a lot of ionization radiation, like X-rays, but we don't have any such ionization radiation. It's also a non-contact method too. And so it has got a lot of safety features where we can make this technique successful. Where is the market right now? The medical imaging market is worth about $15 billion in 2006. And about that, the 50% of the revenue is garnered by these core techniques which are being used for cancer detection. So we think there's a big market for it to capitalize on it. And some numbers, the breast cancer devices is expected to grow from about 1.2 billion in 2006 to about 2.7 billion by 2012. And the breast biopsy devices is market valued about 300 million in 2006, and we expect double-digit growth over the next 5 years. And medical expenditure for melanoma is about 2.5 billion. So it's a huge market and motivation for this. Okay, this is a key slide where I'm sort of proposing, here is our optical tomography system, and these are the existing techniques, biopsy, MRI, CT, and PET. First, a brief overview of these two techniques. What does MRI and CT does? It gives you very high resolution images based on anatomical. So you get really very good high resolution. But what it doesn't do, and PET is positron emission tomography system, where you inject some radionuclide which goes to your body and get absorbed and gives you high, and this is PET is based on functional parameters like oxygenation and blood volume, which is our technique is based on. And we know that when you relate it to the functional parameters, they are very good for early cancer detection. So that's why we think that our technique has more potential to give you a lot of information about early cancer, and especially PET is being now recommended if you are, for early, because it gives you at a cellular level information much earlier. Even if these two techniques will give you high resolution images, but they are not really good for early detection because they don't give you that much of cellular information. Some idea about the time scale. Our technique can be done in about 15 minutes. PET, it depends upon where you are, how long it takes for the radionuclide to go through your body. And so that sometimes can take even hours. So I'm put sort of a conservative estimate of 75 to 90 minutes. CT, you are exposed to ionization radiation, is about 45 to 60. MRI, it's 45 to 60 if you remain still. My personal experience, it took me 75 minutes to 90 minutes because I moved. So if you don't move, then it's fast. If you move, it takes even more time. And biopsy, this is the time frame. And what about the safety thing? I'll talk about the safety first, since I'm talking about CT is ionization radiation. So definitely in terms of scale, it will be poor. And the radionuclide can sometimes, which is in use for PET, can be sometimes cause some secondary effects in your body. So there are some harmful aspects of it. And cost-wise, we know the MRI machines are expensive, like a new TELSA system, which is being used, the TELSA scanners. It is anywhere from $1 to $2.5 million. So the cost per, have to be enough number of tests has to be done to recover the cost. So in terms of dollar, PET is expensive the most, and the MRI followed by biopsy and CT. And biopsy can be cheap, sometimes it can be single dollars, but sometimes you have to have an anesthesiologist involved. If it's some complicated region, then anesthesiologists come into picture, and then you go to like an inpatient procedure, and it can get expensive. So ours will be relatively low cost. And I talked earlier about the safety compared to the other techniques. What about the resolution? That's one of the key features. As I said, with MRI and CT, we get very good resolution, and which is comparable to us. In fact, with MRI, the resolution is about 100 microns, whereas with our techniques, it's about 20 microns. And there is a potential theoretical limit for optical tomography is 2 to 5 microns. So we are going to try to achieve that. And I'm going to talk about one issue, which is we are also working on using nanoparticle-based biomarkers, because we have seen that we have not done quantitative work, and if we inject that, we can improve the resolution to even further. So in terms of resolution, we will be very competitive even than MRI. And the size, part of it is also cost. For MRI, it's used high superconducting magnets, so you need a huge space. So ours, as I said, it will be a tabletop system which can be rolled out and used in the doctor's office. So, and in terms of the size, these are better than MRI, but still MRI is sort of the worst, being the huge size because of the superconducting magnets it involves. And biopsy is an inpatient, so it can be, there is no really scale for biopsy in terms of space and size. What about the commercialization team? Of course, I'm the personal PI, principal investigator. My background, I've been working with ultra-pulse laser systems for about 8 to 10 years. And we have got, if you do a Google search on short pulse imaging, I should be all over. And who are my partners? Dr. Caroline Fosno, she's from the School of Business. She'll be responsible for the market research. Some of the information is still needed, when you have to develop a new, medical device. What is the real need? So there's still more work needs to be done. And we are working with this company, Radiance Incorporated. It's one of the upstart companies which came out from a university. But the mission of this company is to work with universities to develop technologies. They have their own IP for their compact laser system, so they don't interfere in the universities. Their role is to help university if they want to develop techniques, and they can cater the laser system based on that. So it's two mutually exclusive. They don't have any rights on the intellectual property which we develop, but they are going to custom make a laser based what we need. And we, of course, have a radiologist in a team, Dr. Tom Foster. He used to be a professor before, but I guess he wants to make more money. So he's in private practice and in a hospital, and he'll be looking into the early business development plan. What are the critical factors which is going to affect our commercialization, market, penetration for any medical device market? Because the doctors, one thing is that we are very sensitive to new techniques. If I go and tell a doctor, okay, here's a new device, they get upset. So one of the things what you're going to propose is that our technique of optical tomography be added to the list of the existing techniques. I'm not going to say replace MRI, replace CT, but I'm just saying that add our technique to the list to be explored by the, when they go for a secondary test. And eventually it can maybe become the #1 test. But we want to be very sensitive to that. And I mentioned before that the market is still open because of the need, some of the numbers I mentioned, like only 65% accuracy for melanoma. Competitive, alternative technologies, I mentioned all before, but we think with the time it takes, the space and the safety aspect will even make it a seller. Resolution limitation, because the key, again, is the early cancer, because we know that late melanoma is easy to detect, but the least, but almost not treatable. So the early is one of the key, and we are looking for features where we can look for early. And here I mentioned that we will be going to use gold, some nanoparticles, where we think we can even improve the resolution further and achieve the theoretical limit as the optical tomography can achieve. Financial, medical device innovation and development carries a high cost barrier. And we cannot overcome that, but still our system will be cheaper than the existing system. And for any medical device, it has to go to the FDA approval process, which can be, time consuming. And a lot of times, with the US system being go to the European market first. I know one of the optical tomography system they're using in ophthalmology, they started, it's called Lightwave or something. They're developing the market in Europe first. I'm not saying they don't look at safety, but I guess the FDA bureaucracy can be sometimes more more detailed than other markets. So what does this benefit does to Florida Tech? It leverages our existing market. Dr. Michael Grace is a professor in biology. He's working with me in the animal studies. Dr. Yang, he's in the chemistry. He's going to develop the nanoparticles for the biomarkers. And Dr. Fosno for the market research. And basically it's going to leverage our existing like a team, mechanical, biomedical engineering, biological sciences, chemistry, and business. And FIT has committed to 1:1 funding match for this project. And we are also can get in kind. Radiance has been one of our partners in this progress, and if offered in terms of optics and supplies we need, I'm pretty sure we can approach them. What are the next steps? What I mean by next steps, this is something what we're going to do with 10K. We are going to develop a prototype for the animal studies. I showed one of the pictures before. You already have the things ready. We have the ideas how to package it, and we can easily, confident we can achieve that in 6 months' time. And what do we need to do? Also start looking, into the market research for how to do the clinical trials, because that will be one of our further steps. We don't have a medical school, but we have local hospitals who does a lot of NIH-based clinical trials. We can partner with them. And University of Central Florida, which is like 45 minutes from us, they're coming with a new medical school, and our administration is already working with them because they don't have a biomedical engineering program. So if you can do some partnerships. And industrial collaboration, we already have some with Radiance. We will be looking for investment capital. One way is to license the technology, out from here before the clinical trials, but I rather want to be involved in the clinical trials. But we want to keep an option if we really get some attractive, where you can maybe form a spin-off company and be part of it. I definitely want to be involved myself with the commercialization of it when it comes to the clinical trials. So our target sale price for the first year is $250,000, and this will give you an idea where we stand in terms of MRI and the PET systems. And MRI is typically at least 1.1 to 1. The low end is 1 million. And immediate sell expectations, what you want to do is like about 40 systems in the first year. And we really want to work closely with our customers, because any medical device, we just don't, want to really get feedback. What are the limitations, and take it to the next step. So, and Dr. Foster has some has experience being in a university before how to handle that. So we're looking forward to that. So that's sort of my presentation, and open for questions.
That's great. Thanks, Cal. Everybody's ahead of time today. So,
it's the coffee.
15 minutes. Questions? Go for it.
Yeah, can you just talk a little bit about the FDA approval process and what you need, and also along with that, what kind of insurance for reimbursement issues? And
that's an excellent question. I can give you some idea, from personal experiences, like MRI. A lot of people don't want to do MRI because you are inside a claustrophobic chamber. So you want to do, they refer you to open MRI. And I know insurance companies don't like to even approve an open MRI because there are many less centers and much more expensive. So that's something we have to come up with a business model and sell that our techniques is better, and work with insurance companies. You have to give them the data in the first years. And that's the challenging task, is to convince the insurance companies that this will be a low cost yet more methodical. I have a feeling insurance companies are looking for cheapest way to give you the detection. So I think so we can sort of, if we not get good result, high resolution in a cheaper way, I think so they will bite that, because they are looking to give you the cheapest way to detect your disease. And the FDA approval process, I don't have huge experience, but I know it's because I work with some FDA colleagues on some technology. I'm also working with some lasers for some ophthalmology applications with some FDA partners, and sometimes we also file a provisional patent on that, and it took them 2 years to even go to the paperwork signature. So I know it's a slow process, but I don't really say that we'll get it done in 1 year, or it's a time, and we have to go to the normal process of and that's why one of the partners on the hospitals will come into picture, because they are more experienced in know how to do the clinical trials.
What are the technical challenges for miniaturizing?
For miniaturization?
Yeah, so you showed a small system.
Actually, this company, they already have, this, to give you an idea, when I started working in the short pulse laser system, this is our current system with some of the optics, not all, with some of the optics. It used to, as I said, this table. So you're already in a stage, this company, we have developed a small box, but what you want to do is to take some of these fibers and all package it internally. And so I don't think we have some of the ideas working with the company, drawings and physical, idea how to do it. So I think so in terms of challenging this.
Let me be more specific. Do you think in how many years you can do this like a pregnancy test? You can pick it up from CVS
from
pharmacy.
A doctor? Well, this I don't think is intended to be done from an off-shelf thing. This has to be, what we want to do is to not do a second, like when you go to a radiologist, take doctor's office, they said, okay, you have to make an appointment for an MRI. We want to do it in the doctor's office right at there. So we're going to cut down one level of appointment time if we need to do it. But our goal is first is to make it available in the doctor's office in a portable system, and so that you don't have to, you can stay in the room and it can be done. We are not, I understand your point, like we are not looking at that right now to be.
So how many years? Or is there a technical limitations that you really cannot reach that level of miniaturizing and ease of use that you can have?
We are confident, within, in terms of, we can do the prototype for the animal, studies in 6 months in terms of miniaturization, and for the clinical trials, part of it will, because animal studies is definitely there's a big step, between animal to clinical trials. We have to see what technical challenges but we are confident maybe what your question, if I understand, is when can I produce the first system, right?
The sort of the roadmap of what first system that can be used by doctors, but how long would it take you for a solution like this? There could be some technical barriers that can never take it
sure
to be a product an ordinary person can use off the shelf, like a pregnancy test type of solution. It's very cheap. You can pick it up and do early detection of cancer. Is there technical barriers that you can't do that, given the FDA approval and all that stuff?
Including that FDA?
All these barriers.
I must admit, I think we can get started in clinical trials in a year time with our system. And I must admit, I'm not very, have not done any clinical trials. So I don't know what even the roadmap to that, can be. It can be 5 years or 10 years or what information. I'll be definitely needing, to work with the hospital or medical schools to get some, feedback. But we can produce as I said, we can produce the animal system in 6 months' time, and then we can hook up to do the similar thing on the clinical. We can have the clinical trials ready to be run within 2 years at most. But beyond the roadmap, part of it is, I must admit, and I don't want to tell you, it'll be 3 years, and because I don't have enough knowledge in some of the.
But do you believe there's the main question is there a technical barrier that would limit?
We don't think so, because I tell you, some of
the
results we have got with our animal studies gives us confidence that what are the issues in cost, resolution, and safety, and I think so we have overcome, all of these challenges compared to the existing technology. So we are confident we don't see any, barrier. But again, human is a little bit different when it comes from animal. But technically, no, we don't see any barrier in terms of the technology development.
I guess in terms of sort of for the melanoma market, biopsy is sort of the main approach, and not so much. My understanding, not so much CT, PET. Is that right?
Yeah, biopsy still for skin. If you go to a dermatologist, when I went, I have some mark here, and she said, okay, I want to make sure there's nothing. So the first line of defense is biopsy if you go to a dermatologist.
Yeah. So I think you mentioned at the beginning of your presentation there was sort of another local imaging technology out there, or no? I just want to.
No, for skin.
Yeah, I think you said maybe they use it for optical.
Oh, so the OCT. Okay, the OCT, the optical coherence tomography. That's a laser-based only other optical-based system which is sort of commercially available in the market is I mean, see, these are non-optical based system. Ours is a laser is an optical based system.
So is that applicable? Can you use that for? I guess my question is, can you use the existing technology for melanoma, and if so, why aren't they using it? And if not, why not?
As I said, like the resolution. This is a chart. Yes, you can use. Oh well, I didn't really put the limitation. We think that with the short pulse laser, see the optical coherence tomography, which is the technique, which is only other optical technique which is available in the market. Research has been done a lot on cancer, but there is no commercial system. And we think that the resolution, what we get with a short pulse laser system, will be much better than what we can get with a regular continuous wave lasers. And maybe that's one. I don't know what is the challenge, but people have been working on it. You look at publications. If you do a publication search on OCT, you'll be spending one day. But I don't know what is the limit. I think so the resolution is still maybe the challenge on a regular optical coherence tomography system, where we think that with our short pulse laser technique is one of the key features of our technology, which will make them different than the existing market of optical.
I guess just sort of feedback from the doctors and other people out in the healthcare industry that you've been talking to about this. Do they? So I think for breast cancer, they know what they're looking for when they do the imaging. Now for melanoma, is it pretty well understood what you would be looking for in these images? Because with the biopsies, I mean, I think what they do is they take the biopsy and they try to grow up the cells. So
and
it's more like a cellular.
You look at the microscope.
Yeah, so it's a different, it's a different type of data.
Right.
So how well understood is that, sort of from the imaging of melanoma versus, say, breast cancer, the level of understanding of what you're looking for in the images?
Yeah, how comparable are the data sets?
Yeah.
Between a biopsy and ours?
Yeah.
See, biopsy is like a histology process. What they will do, they'll cut a skin sample, they'll do some in fact, I do histology, I do some of my work on research on laser therapy applications, which is not really, I don't do biopsy. What I do, I heat up tissues, and I cut into slides, do preparation, and look under the, microscope and see how much the damaged zones have been created. So that's sort of, biopsy in a way, same technique. You do the tissue preparation and you look at a slide. So what you don't really get in a biopsy may be the depth, because it's a cross-sectional image. So what you may not sometimes get, you may get the spread here, but you may not be able to get the depth. Whereas our technique with a laser, especially that's another advantage of short pulse lasers. It has got more power to penetrate deeper rather than a regular continuous wave laser which is used in OCT, because you may not get that much of depth of penetration. I mean, sometimes it can be subsurface tumors or cancer, but sometimes there can be a little bit underneath it. So the penetration is sometimes also another challenging test.
You understand? I mean, like the data is a little. It's not really apples to apples.
No, I agree. I mean, that's why I said, yeah. I mean, so
which is fine. Which is totally fine. It's just how well understood doctors are going to know what they're looking for when they do the images, and how hard is that? And I'm just wondering, from the feedback you get from your collaborators, if they see that as a big challenge or something that's kind of a, pretty well sorted.
One of the challenges for the radiologists, what I said, if I have to compete, actually I'll be competing with PET, because for early cancer, you definitely need cellular level information, which is functional parameters which will relate to your cancer, to your blood volume, your oxygenation state, because these are the early markers, not very high resolution images, because we want really key is the early cancer. And so even these two will be not our challenges for early cancer. So our challenge will be PET, because PET is that's all the radiologists do if they really suspect early cancer, because PET and our technique, optical tomography, works on the principle of functional, relating the characteristics with the functional parameters. So, and when I have talked to the doctor, the reason the PET, you go to a radionuclide process and you will be sitting for hours, especially the doctors, they want quick turnaround, because they will schedule a patient maybe on the hour, and it takes 2 hours for the radionucleide to get absorbed in the body. So your whole schedule can get, so they want something where it can be more quantitative, and they can, so PET is a great technique. See, what I still want to highlight, each has its own merit and demerits, and what I want is that this technique be added to the list of techniques and to be tested. I mean, I'm not going to say throw out everything, because that's not the right approach.
Yeah. Well, based on my knowledge of diagnostics, and I don't have a whole lot in the cancer area, but in getting some in more of the bacterial area, because I've got an investment in a diagnostic company that's doing very well there. The key thing that I see coming out here is, for potential is the cost. So when because you're relatively comparable to MRI and CT, at least on this, and PET on the resolution. Can you talk about the true cost factor? Are you then 10 times cheaper than biopsy, or how much cheaper?
Yeah,
are you?
okay, that's a good question. And I want to just emphasize another fact that I just read this article a couple of days back. There are 6,000 deaths from cancer due to CT. Because any day you go to a doctor, the first test they want to do is a CT, and there have been 6,000 deaths reported due to exposure of radiation from CT, and I think that's an alarming number. So it's just not the, I mean, yes, even cost-wise, a PT, I can tell you, a PT right now, see, we are not in a volume process, but I can tell you my cost is more like per machine cost, but I know a PT cost right now about $3,000 ballpark. If you do a PET scan insurance, a doctor will bill typically about $2,500 to $3,000, to a insurance company. I don't know how much they get reimbursed, but that's the will bill. And I think that we can, initially it's a little bit difficult to compete because, we are going to be selling only 40 systems. So, but eventually, if all we are in a same playing field, we should be 5 times cheaper than PET. I mean, I think one of the things, what people will get more conscious about I was really amazed to see that figure, because that's sort of the first line of treatment for diagnostic people doctors will do is CT.
And since you're not closely related, are you closely related enough to be able to do a 510K when it comes to the FDA approval, or you're probably going to? The 510K in the diagnostics world is basically the ability to take another technology and to say that you are, in essence, a faster, better, cheaper version of that, and you get a faster approval, basically on the diagnostic side, versus having to do the whole unit as a brand new unit. So
yeah, I think so. We should be very confident on the data we have got from the animal studies. We should be able to go to if we can convince. I think the first thing FDA is always the safety. I mean, sometimes the cost for all of us is important, but I think the first thing we always think is safety. And if we can even convince that this is way safer than what it is, I think so that should jump right away to the quicker process. And of course, then we can do the cost. And arguments. Even if I imagine the resolution, I even take this column out. Even take this column out. If we can compete on here first and show them we are safe, and then go to here, I think so you should really go to the fast track process.